Hi guys, welcome to session 39 of Java Full Stack Made Easy and part 2 of CSS. In previous examples, the previous session we have discussed about CSS cascading style sheet, where to apply cascading style sheet, how CSS helps us design the web pages better, whereas HTML was just used to place the components, and designing those components will be taken care by CSS. We have discussed about the selectors in CSS, we have discussed about the background properties of CSS, and we have also designed a table using CSS. So this was the last example that we have discussed where we talked about a table, right? So we have designed a table using CSS. So now in my next example, what I would like to include is that uh, I want to select a child tag, that means tag within the tag, and I want that particular selector to be used. So in this example, once again, I'll clean up everything that I have written before, and let's go ahead and see how a child selector can be created and what is the use of a child selector. So I'll just clean up everything that I have written except the style tag, which is used for the internal CSS as discussed in the previous case itself. So we still did not discuss about how external CSS can be created and inline CSS can be created. In few of the HTML examples, we have already created a inline CSS, but we did not still discuss about the external CSS. We will definitely be discussing about the same later. So now I want to have a child selector, that is div space p. So when I define tags like this, it means that it formatting has to be applied. So just let's take a background color formatting so that we understand it is applied on that particular element. So this indicates that a p within the div will have the formatting defined. So let's just declare a simple p tag. Okay, let's call it as just a p tag. And similarly, let's create a simple div tag. Let's call this as this is div. And now what I will do is I'll create another div, and within that div, I'm going to create a p tag within this. Okay, let's call this as p within div. So now you notice that since I have given a child selector there, which means that it should select the element p within the div, right? So let's go to the browser and see whether this works fine or not. So we have to run this on the browser. So open this with the live server. So you can see that p within div only is formatted, rest all things are not formatted at all. So that way we can write a child selector. So let's create a day39 repository for us. And once again, to remind you that in my previous session, I created a new repository, Java Full Stack Made Easy UI. Okay, that's because the limit of the repository creation was over. So because of which I created this. All right, so let me put everything in here. So this is my demo one, which is child selectors. Fine. So let's go ahead and now talk about the other type of selectors, like group selector can also be created within the CSS. That is, for example, if you want your div, p tag, or any other tag to contain the same type of formatting, in that case, defining it separately makes no sense, right? Suppose if you want this background aqua for div and the same background aqua for p tag, not just the background, maybe any type of formatting. So p tag, and let's say for h1 also you want the same, right? So I save it, and wherever I have the p tags and the div tags and the h1 tag, it will be formatted to that. Fine. Hi, h1 tag. Okay, let's save it. So you can notice that whether it is a h1 tag or whether it is a p tag or a div tag, whatever it is, so all the formatting is being applied now. So why should we be repeating this formatting? So as CSS says that if your formatting is similar, then you need not repeat this formatting. So instead of doing this, what you can actually do is you can remove off everything that's written here repeatedly. Just say that this formatting is applied to div, this formatting is applied to paragraph tag, the same formatting is applied to h1 as well. Now if I save, you can see that the formatting remains the same and it did not change for the uh, components. Fine. So let's just copy everything and put it into the repository. Fine. So whenever you have similar formatting for multiple elements, then use a group selector, and based on the group selector, all the tags that you have defined with the group selector, every single tag will have the same formatting. Now, similarly, what I will do is there is one more selector in CSS, that is immediate tag selector. So let's discuss that first. So what I will do is I'll use a div here, and I'll say div plus a p tag, and that should have the aqua background. And now you notice that I have a p tag separately defined, div defined, and then there is a p tag defined within that div. And what I will do is I will also define a p tag immediately after completion of this div. So yeah, div is closed here. I'll define a p tag here, p immediately. Okay. Yeah, immediately after the div. Fine. After div. So I'll define another p tag which is after the p tag. This is p immediately after p tag only. Okay, so let's save it and see where the formatting is applied. Background color aqua. So let's save it and again go to the browser. Now you can notice that the formatting is applied only to the p tag which is immediately after the div tag. So when you say div plus p, it means that immediately after the div, if the p tag exists, then format that, then select that. So that's how we can specify the uh, tags. Fine. So immediate tags can be specified. All right. So let's go ahead and also define the other selectors. Okay. Let's go here. First, let me copy this and put it into the repository. This is the immediate tag selector, demo 3. So we are talking about the selectors itself when it comes to the CSS, right? So CSS selectors plays very important role. Which tag is defined where and for what tag you want to apply the formatting and all will be defined by the selectors itself, whether it is a group selector or a immediate tag selector or a child tag selector, or it is a class selector, or it is an ID selector. So common selectors can also be written. If you write a star, it means that the formatting is applied to every single tag that you use. Star indicates that. Fine. So that way you can define the selectors. Now one more selector I will define here. So which I will say, let's go ahead and I'll just put a greater than symbol here. So I'm saying that div greater than p. So let's now see where this formatting will be applied. So first of all, what all things I have written, let's check that. I've written a p tag, div tag, and then I've written a div tag, and immediately within that div tag I have written a p tag here, and then a p tag immediately after this and after this. Fine. So let's save it and see where the formatting is applied. So it is applied p within the div. All right, that's fine. So it's kind of a child selector, right? If you remember, we have written a child selector for this, like this, p space div space p. So this is something which we have written. Let's call this as red. Okay. So you can now notice that this is kind of a child selector only, right? So what is the difference between writing this greater than and just writing this, right? So both look similar itself. So let's understand that. So I will be writing multiple divs here, multiple p tags here. So there is a p tag, and within that, once again, what I will do is, yeah. So let that div be there, and then we'll have a, yeah, div. Let's close this div. So I'll have a div, and then within the div, what I'm gonna do is I will say that there is this bold text should be created, b tag, and within that I will be having a p tag. Okay, so let's call this as p bold. Let's save it And as for now, what I will do is I'll just comment this out. So let's save it. And since I have defined the p tag as a child selector, so obviously p is a child of div now as well, right? So p within this div, that's fine, child selector. This is working fine. So what I will do now is I will uncomment this one and comment this child selection. Okay, let's save it now and see the result. So now that when we see the result, the p within div is being highlighted. That means that is selected and immediate child is selected. Whereas this p, which is bold, p bold is not selected. Why is that? That is because when you use this greater than symbol, it means that obviously the p should be the child of div, but it should be an immediate child of div. So it cannot go to the other levels. Fine. It cannot go to the other levels. That's how it should be defined. So if you look at the code, you can understand that. So here in this case, when I'm writing this p tag p within div, it is an immediate child of this div, immediate child. So that's why p within div is colored, right? P within div. P bold, what I have done is I have created a div tag. Within that I've created a bold tag, and within that I have a p tag. So p is not an immediate child of this div. Because it is not an immediate child of this div, I am not highlighting that. That means that that particular element is not selected. So obviously there is a difference between just defining what p div space p and div greater than p. So this formatting is defined for the paragraph tag, which is immediately a child of div, and this is for all the child of div. Now what I will do is I'll uncomment this and see what happens. Okay, multiple I have. So you can see that even this particular tag, which I was actually expecting to be aqua, it is still red. That's because this is the formatting that is applied later, right? So in CSS, if you write the formatting like this, you can see that. So the last updated, the last formatting will be taken care. If you have given a, see in this case, I gave a red. So all P's within the div will be red, but immediate P will be aqua because this formatting is written later. If I write it above, then all immediate child of paragraph will be aqua, but because this formatting is written later, it will become red only. Okay, so you need to also remember this part, that if there is a conflict between the properties of CSS, the last updated stuff will be taken. So this is an immediate child selector. All right, so what we have learned here is about what? About the concept of the child selectors, right? The immediate child selectors and all. So if we want to have a child selector at that time, we can easily go for the child selector. Like if you remember this example where I was creating a table. So I'll go back to the table example which I created before. Fine. So this was the first example that we discussed where I had a table and I have defined a table. So this table looks pretty good now. So what I want now is that the formatting of the table data to be different. Okay. So that is what I want is, if the table data is defined within the table head or maybe a table body, that should be defined differently. So that's what I'm looking for. So let's have a table body, and within the table body we will define the TDs separately, and we will define the table bodies separately. That way we want to have the formatting differently for these divs that we have created. So what I will do is I will have a table body tag defined here. So table body in styles. Yeah, table head is defined. So I'll also define one more tag here, that is table body. So table body TD within the table body should have some color. So let's give it aqua color. Okay, and in table body I will write table heads. Table heads should have different color. Let's give some brown color or something here. Okay, let's take this blurry out. So now what I will do is this alternate table rows are there, right? So for each row, instead of defining TDs, I'll define TH for this. So by doing this within the table body, if it is TD, it will give a different color. If it is a TH, it will give a different color altogether, right? So that way I will organize this alternatively. So there is a TD here. In the next row, I will define the TH. Then again, there will be TD. Then after that, there will be TH, there will be TD, and then let's define TH. Then lastly, there is a TD. Let's save it and let's go to the browser. And now you can see that it is perfectly defined, right? So if you want to change this bold and all that, I just copied it from the above case. So that's why it is bold and with a different size. So if you want these two to have the same stuff, then we can define it that way. Okay, so this is how you can organize the data alternatively, alternate data organizing. So usually you might see the tables organized this way. So multiple tags can be created because table we are focusing only because there is much more data that we will be retrieving in the later part of the series. We will be retrieving the data from the database and we will put it on the browser, and then we are required to format the tables. Fine. So I'll just copy this and put it into the repository as well. This is my demo 5. So let's call it as demo 5. So in this example, we are actually making use of what? Child selectors, right? So since we have learned child selector, we applied that child selector on a table. Now what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and format the buttons and also learn about the hovering property in CSS. How do we format that part? So what I'm going to do is once again, I'll clean up everything that I have written here except the style. So the style tag, if it is written within the same HTML page, it is a internal style sheet defined. Okay. So we are still above, we have still not used an external one in the sense creating a separate CSS file and writing the CSS within that. So now what I will do is I will just create formatting for what, let's say I am formatting for a button. Okay. So for a button, I want to perform some formatting. Let's give some background color to this button so that we can identify this. So background color of this button, let's call it as green. Fine. So let's define the height and width also of the button. Height maybe let's say 200 pixels, and let's give some bigger width than the height. Let's say 400 pixels. So there will be a button created for us with the height and width. Now let's save it and see the button on the browser. Oh, sorry. It's just I have just given the formatting, but I did not create the button yet. So let's go ahead and create a button and place the button on the browser. So it will just be a button tag. And for this button, I want to give some caption like this is my button. And let's close the button. Let's save it. And now you should see the button on the browser. So button is being created. Height I have given too much. So let's change the height of that. Let's say it is 100 or something. So it looks good. Now it looks like a button. Okay. So now that I have created a button, on top of a button, I want to have something. Maybe I want to, when my cursor moves over it, when I am hovering on the button, I want to do something. Maybe what I'll do is I'll say button, and when the button uh, hover property is taken, then what I want to do is I want to first change the background so that I can see it. Okay, let's give it a red background now. That's because I can see it, right? So let's save it. And also if we wish to change the height and width of it when the cursor moves on this, we can do that. That is, I just want to increase the height and width a bit more so that when I move my cursor on that, it looks like the button is zoomed. Okay, so let me give the height as maybe 150 and the 450 as width. So when I move my cursor on this, you can see that the button looks like it is zooming. Fine. So hover property does that. Whenever your mouse is over this particular button, what needs to be done can be written into this hover property. Likewise, you might have seen on your browser pages when your cursor moves on to this particular button, the cursor style changes. So even the cursor style can be changed when you write the hover property. That can be done by using the cursor property of CSS. So what I want is I want to give a weight cursor property here, or maybe I want to give a grab, or maybe a not allowed and all that. So you can just Google it and check out what all are the other properties of cursor that you can apply. Fine. So if I put my cursor on this, it goes into a waiting state. So you can just notice the cursor pointer of my mouse. Fine. So likewise, I can change it to other properties as well. Okay, which is cursor. Okay. So I would like to give grab or something. Yeah, grab and grabbing, two different things are there again. So this is my grab, and there is grabbing property also available, grabbing a value for cursor. You can see the difference. Grab and grabbing. Fine. Open hand and a close hand. Fine. Similarly, if some cursors are not allowed and all, so at that time we can simply give cursor not allowed as well. So there are a lot more properties as the time progresses. When you start developing applications, you will remember these things. So it's not about going to Google and by hurting the things. Fine. So you can see that not allowed. So that way we can even define the hovering. That means when your mouse is over that particular element, then what needs to be done. So I'll just simply copy this and put it into the repository for the reference. Okay, and let's call this as demo 6. Okay, let's also write over there. All of the things are selectors itself, and the selectors are properly defined. So what I will do is, again, let's not increase the length of this particular session. So in the third session again of the CSS, we will discuss more about the CSS. We are talking about simple CSS properties. Obviously the sessions are getting increased, but I hope that you are learning about at least a little bit about the CSS, because at the end of the day, if we are required to write at least some part of CSS, we are not afraid of writing the CSS. Definitely, as a backend programmer, most of the time what we do is we do a copy paste for CSS, or we add the templates and all, but at least a few properties, if we know, it will be well and good for us. Fine. So if you like in the series, do comment on my videos and share the series with your friends. Let them also learn with you together so that we can grow together. All right. See you in the next video.